Hello and welcome back to another episode where we are going to see our way around. Okay, that one's just TV. And I'm going to go over some notes. Did I have to go over? As always, the music is brought to you by Floby. This is very good, man. Here are the notes that we're gonna do today. Boom. All spread out pretty much. Okay. Nice. Okay, watch this. I'm gonna choose one of them and then fade it. What happened? Alright, I'm gonna choose one of them and then fade it in. Okay, that looks nice, man. Using story beats to alter the game style, power dependent carries over. Okay. Alright, that one looks pretty good. Let's record that. Oh, we have to turn that off. Okay. Alright, and then we should have some kind of effect. Let's do like crazy slow motion zoom on the pendant. That did not work. How are we gonna crazy slow motion zoom this pendant? Alright, maybe if we hang it like this. Alright, and now that looks kind of janky, dude. This also kind of janky. Here. Okay. I could kind of see that. Let's go ahead and okay, I guess that's about as dramatic as it gets. Okay, on to the next one. Next one we have really talked about quite a bit. And that is the arbiters. So I don't think we need to do it again, but we can review the ones that we did already. Okay. Sorry. Actually, one of the promises I made to myself was to not say okay like that anymore. So The arbiters are the in-between between Lavos, who's sort of the central moving force of the game, and player who's playing the game. Play the game is to interact with Lavos. And so that's why it's super meta that the arbitration is a thing. Now, the people who are arbiters is kind of loosey-goosey. It's like Marl was given... Here. Who would be an arbiter? In this sequence of events, we're going to say that you can become an arbiter from prolonged exposure to the frozen flame, and if you go to the darkness beyond time. Like, one time in this game called Chrono Trigger, there was a person who went back into a reality where she didn't exist. I don't know, this moment we're gonna give her arbiter status from this. She went to like the crazy place where she doesn't exist, and so did a Trouphouse. Let's see if this list is accurate. Last time I checked, I do not believe it is. Oh, this might be the updated one. Let's see. Serge or Sergey, Nadia, Shala, Kid. I'd like to keep it ambiguous. All right, let me explain about Kid and Gil are, oops. They are like a team. They are a team unit at first. And one of them is an arbiter, but it would be cool, I think, if it remained ambiguous which one. But the answer is probably both, because of the mechanic whereby if you equip a frozen flame on... Here it is. So equipping a frozen flame on a character for 2,000 battles will make them an arbiter. And we're going to assume that Magus and Gil... Kid and Magus have both fought at least 2,000 battles, because, you know, their starting scenario is one where you have the I'm getting there. Kids start. You start with the frozen flame when you do their start. Okay, cool. So that's about arbiters. So we got that one taken care of. Let's just bring that one. In that case, let's put this on top. The note that started this all. Which one would it be? Oh, game mechanic arbiters. Here we go. Boom. So we can put that here. That looks pretty sweet. All right. You will game over. And then after you game over, the last arbiter that you had will be the starting scenario that you begin at. So I think that would be pretty sweet if that was, see, there we go. When you do the Kid Gill start, you begin with a frozen flame. So they're both arbiters. All right. Oh, remember I said I was trying not to say all right like that. But let us continue to the next. Boop. I think that's a good place to stop since it's on the courtroom and that's where we started. So if we take all this stuff away, perfect. Any more notes that might go with the courtroom? One of these notes is going to go well with the courtroom. Oh, we already did one, right? Yeah, we already got the courtroom one. Okay, courtroom can go. Next. I believe we did this one yesterday. This one say. Okay, it's different. This is about the end game. But actually the end game comes pretty early. It's actually just the game. See how trippy that is? Like you get to the end game right away. Then you can decide how you play that. Because the end game is really just the game. And then you can alter the map in two ways. You can do the Warring Dyad. See, we got a bunch of Warring Dyad ones. Like this one. Let's look at this one. You can alter the map. If Fate wins, she takes over Mother Brain and Central Regime. And the elements no longer work. Because the, the power of the elements is derived from the Dragon God. So if you defeat the Dragon God once and for all, the elements would stop working. So that's like a gameplay mechanic that you can choose to make. You can choose that path if you want. Pros and cons at every turn and every choice that you make, which is really... Okay, so if Fate wins, then you're going to go back to the traditional save format where you use the records to, you know, save Chrono Trigger style. Up until this point, since you got into the break, the save style switched to like an Animal Harvest type of thing where you can't undo anything. It's just your latest condition is where you pick up. So this gives you some flexibility. When you get to the end game / the break, if you go to get involved with the War of the Dragon God, Jealous Gods, you can recruit Shala and put to rest this like issue that's been happening for so long, which is this cutscene from the end of Chrono Cross, which I'm going to assume that's Fate. Sorry, I talk about this a lot. It's just so perplexing to me. And this is spliced in with another Dark Pixels artwork. But the dragon coming out of the sky in this is all Chrono Cross. So we know that Shala is going to play a part in whatever that was. Okay. It's made to be replayed or saved. So you can go through the game quickly and get to quote-unquote ideal ending, or you can curate party maintenance, map exploration, party building, and you can alter massive conditions on the map in certain ways if you choose. Oh, let's go back to the map talk. Oh, this one was actually just a draft. I don't think we're not keeping that one, are we? Maybe, I don't know. I don't think that's the appropriate place to talk about that. Although all three of them have been totally figured out. Okay, here we go. So when in a game called Chrono Break, when time is broken in a place called the Break, you just reframe the maps in this manner, where this piece of land is actually been time crashed from 12,000 BC, and another piece of land over here is actually the planet believes that it's a different year. It has the space-time coordinates of a different time zone, which is all explained in. I heard Chrono Compendium went down, but there's an article there, Salt for the Dead Sea, which kind of explains how, like, what is explained? Forgot what I was saying. I'm sure it'll come back to me. Oh. When you do a time crash, that's because I need to pull out my things again. Sorry. Oh, time crash notes. Time crashed regions inherit new space-time coordinates. So this part of the planet is like medieval ages, and this part qualifies as like 1000 BC or 1000 AD. So if you have a party that does some action out here, you know, say that you defeat some kind of monster here, then here in 1000, just a little bit across a little bit down the map, this massive, maybe a huge 100-year entrenched base of monsters is just suddenly evaporates, because on this part of the map, like for instance, let's say that there's just a massive monster presence over here. Okay, and then this is okay, this part of the map is that, and yes. So happy that worked so fast. All right, boom. So this island is like 1020. This one's 700. But they are both designated as designated as the Keystone Dimension. So, like I said, up here there's a massive monster presence, and the townspeople are being plagued. So you're up here and you're like, man, I don't think my party is not strong enough to get in here yet. I'm only level 14 right here. So when I try to get up in here, this is just way too complicated. The enemies are super difficult. However, these people in the city are being, attacked mercilessly by monsters. So maybe we can solve the problem if we it's like because there's a huge catastrophe here, then the planet would use the time gates would form naturally thanks to anti-annihilation energy. So, but they would typically appear in a different time. But since time is broken, then the time gates are now just like teleporting across the map, with the caveat that if you go into here, then when you come out, you'll be like able to defeat some enemies over here. Like, let's say that maybe at this time, just a little bit weaker, the monster presence. So just get in there and you're like, boom, boop, da, bow, 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 bow. And then they're gone. And guess what, my friends? You can take your time going back to this part of the map where our friend is also gone because he was, you did a time attack on him. And so that would be like how some of the mechanics work. Because according to this, time-crashed regions remain effective by their history in the native dimension. So if two places were time-crashed next to each other, then you're just like, all right, if I do something over here, it's going to change it over there. But then after that, you're all like, Mr. Level 99 now. Okay, let's go to the next one and see what we got. This would be from a trip to 700 during the early stage of the game. Oh, let's check the chat. You gotta tell me what happens, bro. Like, Pico won and escaped to the darkness between time and space or whatever, and fate is time crashing the whole world to create. How do they win? How can Pico be beaten? You would have to go back before Luca beat Lavos and totally crush Lavos somehow. That's the only way, right? And who's killing all the news? Was it Dalton? Okay. This is heavy. This gets to the whole crux of the entire series, which is essentially that the player comes to the realization that aside from... Okay, after you beat the Vision Serpent, then you've got... Then you find old Luca in Breakwave Point. And she's like kind of despondent. Hold on, this one might have its own music. Let me bring down the music here. Okie dokie. So the reason I showed that is because it's critical in answering the questions that you just had. Let's review those questions. Chat, please return. How do they win? How can Pico be beaten? Okay. So... Oh, about that picture. Yeah, I asked... Okay, the picture that we're talking about here is... this picture. This picture was made knowing the story exists. Because I asked Eduardo to commission it. I got this picture made for this story. So that's why it fits so perfectly. But thank you for noticing. Let's put the chat on top of this picture. All right. We can adjust that a little bit. There we go. All right, who is killing all the news? That is something that we'll get to last. First, we will review this movie, but without the sound. So where did I put that movie? Okay, here it is. All right, so after you defeat the Vision Serpent, then you go to the break, and you find Luca there, and this is after the events of Dusk of Time. So, and she's like, as it says here, okay, so Breakwave is the home base. That's essentially that's the home base for the rest of the game. And it's important to say that when I say that the end game happens quickly, I do mean it. Like, after you defeat the Vision Serpent, that's sort of like, now you're in the self-curated map exploration game where we are gonna, that looks terrible there, but tie up loose ends through a secondary story, make it make sense, focus on gameplay. That's it, essentially. So now we're on like a... That was wild. Hold on, I don't want to get sidetracked. I think that end game thing was pretty helpful. Party maintenance, map exploration, and party building. All right, so after you defeat the... After you get past the Vision Serpent, then you eventually realize that there's no reason to face Pico. Like, you just continue the end game. You can face him if you want, but you pretty much realize that that's how it ties into the theme of the Arbiters. It's like, your role as an Arbiter is to be a mediator with Lavos, and so after you go, if you choose to go face Pico, which you have to face his true self, and Janus in the Darkness Beyond Time, then there's one reason to go do that. There is one reason to do that. Okay. The party can acquire the Frozen Flame by defeating Pico in the Darkness Beyond Time. This is misspoken. This is not the whole truth. The party can destroy the Frozen Flame in the Darkness Beyond Time and also leave Pico to live. And that is sort of like the ideal ending. Like, you realize that there's no reason to defeat Pico. And in fact, I kind of had in mind that if you do defeat... Okay, we got to go to the notes for this. This is really complicated. There should be some movies about it. Let's see what this one says. This music, once again, is by Flovey, and the last one was by the One-Ups, but in case you're curious, and we're going to the notes. We're going to write them all down. Okay. Okie dokie. I'm going to add okie dokie to the list of things that I don't say. But for now, I've come to the conclusion that I figured it out. So, this is the one that we want. Here. Base Pico to destroy the frozen flame. Alright, well, the most important thing to point out really quickly here is that this is, as we stated, a map exploration game, and you will have parts of the map that are so if you want to face him, you're going to have to get through someone else as well. And this is like the super OP version, as mentioned before. So you can initiate a fight with these two, but he's basically, this version of Janus is, his poetic justice in the end would be just to be left alone. His happy ending is to be left alone. And now that he's sort of like buddied up with Pico, he's happy just doing that and being like a brainwashed tool of some kind of force that really just wants to be left alone and live in peace. So if you come in to face him, then you can destroy the frozen flame. But if you defeat them, then in this game where you have, as we showed on the map before earlier, you've got a constant flow of monsters coming in to different areas of the map. And that's why it's really about map curation. It's a game of map curation because monsters flow from certain places. So you're going to have like territory where some areas are way more polluted than others. Let's say this area is overrun. Ignore the names. All right, you know what? Let's go back. I did the wrong one. So first you have this area is totally overrun, all right? And then you go over there and you wipe out the Lavos threat. And uh-oh, the territory, and it looks good now. But then there's like another threat at another part of the map because of all the crazy shenanigans that happened that formed the overworld in the first place. And so on. So you can sort of clean up your territory and get territory. And there will be flood zones. There will be like areas where they're kind of pouring out of this time gate. This is a monster heavy zone. They're pouring out of time gates. And so that'll be a mechanic that's in the game. So when you defeat Pico, the monster flood mechanic will activate for the darkness beyond time, which points to the fact that he may or may not have been preventing that from happening, and he's actually a benevolent figure. That's the ultimate. At the end of the day, Pico should just be like left alone. You can destroy the frozen flame if you want to unlock no arbiter mode, but that is the true essence of Chrono Trigger storyline, is that this particular version of Lavos, who became humanized and baptized in the dangerous world of linguistic thought, can just find peace by living in the darkness beyond time with tormented Janus, who sort of likes his existence there. Now, this final part is like the craziest part. So let's say that you defeat Pico, aka unalive Pico. Like you just totally defeat him and Janus. And then the monsters start to come into the DBT. Now you've just adjusted the conditions of your game to have this happen. This kind of like end game mode where the darkness beyond time is a source for massively strong monsters that just get stronger and stronger. You sort of, if you defeat Pico, then you've set the clock ticking on your own demise, because now like stuff's going to start coming from the darkness beyond time that eventually you might not be able to handle. Just a theory, right? So if you want to undo Pico's death, then you can. Now this is just severe grain of salt warning here, but I was thinking that you could travel the darkness beyond time and keep wandering through it long enough until you find yourself battling him previously. You stumble upon the battle that you had with him where you defeated him. And if you so choose, you can engage the party that defeated him to stop that from happening. Just a thought. It's pretty out there, but that would follow all the mechanics of, that we need for the game mechanics. You want to be able to set your conditions on a map, for instance, and perhaps undo it. I don't know. If the theme of the game is really sticking to your choices, then this is questionable. But the truth is that Pico should pretty much just be left alone. And that brings me to let's see, how do I get nice? So this is just the last time we're going to take a look at basically what we did last broadcast, but this is what the world map looks like. And then when you switch to dimensions, you would get, switching dimensions, you would get just another map. It would be as easy as pressing the R button on the controller, and whatever party you have in that dimension would be, at least in the early game, you'd need to have an arbiter. Let's say maybe Bob became an arbiter because you equipped him with the frozen flame for 2,000 battles. right, let's check out what notes we might have missed. So the story, although overwhelmingly complex, is not something you need to know at all. Oh, I know. Before we go, let's break down that video that we watched before. Okay. This part is helpful too. Chrono Break is meant to be played over and over. Start with Princess Marl and unlock 5 different starting scenarios to tell new variations of the classic tale. After you join Ayla and her tribe, reset the game at any time. And that plays into the theme of replayability. The first game is canon. It's amazing. Everyone loves Chrono Trigger. It's done for. You can't alter it. What happened has happened. And that's all we really need. And then there's what happened in between this game and Chrono Cross, which you can dig into. But like the old game Adventure, where you were just a block and nothing was explained, it's just events happening. So after you defeat the Vision Serpent, the Dragon God splits from Fate, and the Dragon God just flies away up north, and Fate chases after it. So that's the only clue you're left with as to what to do next. Other than that, it's all just party maintenance, map exploration, party building. the real Magus ends up with Kid. The real Magus went to face the Time Devourer and then ended up so the Kid start is like, he calls himself Gil, but that's our real Magus. So the real Magus from Chrono Trigger appears with Kid. And at first, because he interacted with the Time Devourer, and as we last saw him at the end of Chrono Trigger DS, doesn't know who he is. So they do like Radical Dreamers style things. Gil and Kid roam the land, circumventing the war, seeking out adventure and stealing treasure. They do Radical Dreamer style things, but so to echo that timeline. But they are another entry point into the game. But they start in another world, and everyone else starts in the broken dimension. They start in another dimension. Kid ends up in another world after Chrono Cross. Alright, I do have some notes on Kid. She's like, her story is really kind of depressing. Because for Kid, she has to wait until she needs to go back to Opasa Beach 10 years after Chrono Cross to set the events in motion of Chrono Cross. So she starts at that moment where she goes back to Opasa Beach and then saves. I'm not sure exactly what happened at that moment, whether or not that's where she saved baby Surge's life or what, but it starts there, and then she basically finds him, but because his memory's been erased and he's with Lena, he doesn't remember her, and that sends her on this like crazy sad tailspin before this game begins, where she goes to just like steal stuff after she buddies up with Magus, who is also kind of wandering and lost. That's where Kid ends up. So if they can cross, once you get the ability to cross over to dimensions, or you do a Kid start, then you will be faced with those two in your party. And like I said, they are essentially linked until like these two can't really be separated until they're side quested and they become, you know, sort of powerful enough to stand on their own. And same as these two, like they cannot be separated also. So there's kind of like this idea I had where imagine, oopsies. Imagine that you can only bring 3 characters, but if they're linked, they count as one entity, so they can travel through time gates together. I don't know. I think that's kind of a slippery slope. At any rate, these two are buddy-buddy until Gil becomes Magus in his side quest. So let's see. We start with Gil. But then after he does like his, awakening. What's that? After he does his awakening, he'll become Magus again. There we go. And now the link can be... Boop, they could go off separate. Alrighty, let's see if there's anything else that we need to talk about today. Oh, there is. I wanted to just talk about that. This movie without the music. Okay, so like I said, this is important. This is kind of like a climax. This is the whole theme of the game. So Luca is old now, and she has come to the realization that, like, what's the point? There's no point in battling Pico. So if you take her as a guest character with you, she will not go into, like, towards his citadel. She'll just bail on. She'll just bail on the group and be like, I've gone far enough for the day, and then the guest will return back. Because you can bring her out as a guest. But if you get too close to Pico Citadel, she's just like, okay, I'm done. This version of Luca, this Luca realizes it's not worth fighting. So over the course of the game, you can change that. But the point remains that Pico is ultimately not the threat. The threat is just living together in the world and maintaining your map. Which is why we get to... Now this is an important part, so I'm going to put like a super dramatic background. Let's see, what's a super dramatic background? Take a look at these. We want to get one that's like a shot of the whole crew. Okay, let's just do this one. Okay, I'll do my speech. For many moons, this project was considered to be called as Chrono Break, and indeed the word break... Whoops. Okay. And indeed, because the overworld is called the Break and time is broken, Chrono Break would be an apt name to describe such an event, such a game. However, why is it called Chrono Break like this? Because it all ties into the theme and the end game. One more time. Because Chrono Trigger was so great, we don't need to do too much. We just need to party maintenance, map exploration, and party building. And awesome combat. That's all we ask. So anyway, Luca, this particular Luca, this older Luca with a lot more wisdom, as it says here, not there, but here. This Luca is much older. Despite all that's happened, she's at peace, but there's a sadness in her too. So you can basically, like, over the course of the game, rejuvenate her happiness, but she still is at peace because she's so old now, and she realizes that, what is this? She doesn't see a point to fighting anymore, but she'll happy to escort you in the break. As a guest, Luca is a powerful caster of Hypno Wave. Facing challenging enemies in the break are safer when Luca's around. Use the supportive spells. And yeah, if you get too close to Pico's Citadel, she'll abandon the party. She'll be like, I've gone far enough for the day. Alright, so let's keep talking about this one. You can talk to her. How do I get back home? Where are we? What have you been up to? Who was chasing us? Where are all the monsters coming from? Why are you old now? What are those pink pyramid things out there? And who's Pico? With the caveat that some of her like answers, you can't ask certain questions until you've unlocked certain story beats. But if you ask her this one, what have you been up to? Then she will regale you with a 17 chapter recap of her adventures. So it would be like, you can watch the movie on the channel, like I mentioned, but also each one of these chapters would show you a playthrough. For instance, like you'd learned about the bonded characters by playing as Robo and Luca bonded together in this particular chapter. Here's all the chapters, and you would sort of learn a game mechanic in all of those. So if you ask her that, if you talk to her there, you do this, you play through the events of the movie while learning a different game mechanic at most of the stops along the way, so you can become super familiar with it. And all the items and stuff that you pick up while you're doing that would be in your inventory when you exit out of the past storyline. And you might even be able to interact with it after you've played through it, as indicated by this glimpse here, where it's like the overworld might contain traces of other things that have happened in the past on it. That's something to get into later, but for now, let's just continue looking at this chapter list. And this last one is important. This gets to the question about why are the new disappearing. So after you get to the events of the movie end pretty much right here at the Black Wind. And New Extinction is, imagine that it's like a chance to play on the break, on the particular map that you have generated for your time. You can play through that basically for some unspecified point up until the party arrives there. So you have like, a set amount of time that you can play and gather around the world learning things and like building up your inventory before the party arrives and you're like at your place. So New Extinction is essentially the bridge between Dusk of Time and when you arrive there in Chrono Break. And it explains why the new have been going extinct. Which I will explain another time, but basically it's like because they are temporally entangled, someone knew that the only way it could be plotted upon, I think it's fate. Fate eliminates them, starts eliminating them. I'm not sure. It could be Dalton, but I gotta look at my story notes for that one. Okay, so let's see. Where are we going from here? I want to get back to this montage. Okay, ask Luca what she's been up to and play through the events of her life after Chrono Trigger and learn how the break was born. And then in chapter 17, New Extinction, do like you have unlimited access to the map that you're on in the present. Items and text Luca picks up during this prequel journey will be available at Breakwave Point when you get out of the quest. It's a great time to level up great way to level up your party. For instance, like if you're running around as Luca during New Extinction and you get a ton of magic tabs from Kajar, then you can just exit out of the previous playing adventure, go into your main game, and you'll have all these magic tabs that you can sync into, like, you know, maybe like, I don't know, one of these guys. You could drop a ton of magic tabs on Torque, Victor. All of these names came from Final Fantasy VI. Cave people. Unused Final Fantasy VI names. Okay, we're almost getting to the end of this video over here. It is nice. So that shows like the that last part shows off the party mechanics. So you can train here at Breakwave Point. You could train the parties together so that they develop their synergies together. And the real history of the game is written by the weapon history. You know, you've got this axe and then someone goes down and then someone else gets the axe, but you can see who had it for how long. Stuff like that. Tell your own story through the nitty-gritty details of your party development and your weapon management, stuff like that. So this is what I was talking about. After you play through the Dusk of Time long enough, complete chapter 15 or 16, I think it might actually be 16, of the Dusk of Time to get, you know, Luca throws the helmet on and it's like, yo, let's actually do, oopsies, not that. Let's be a real party member. Crushed by the rock, I'm not sure. But I'm definitely getting a headache now. It has been a blast with you, talking and stuff. Which rock are you talking about? Yeah, I kind of made up a lot of it and went over it in my head so many times and made all the little, you know, I made all these movies that it is kind of like remembering it for me too. There's some details that are still to come and some that are not even really figured out yet. But most of it's finished, and that's the important part. Okay. I am totally going to split. It has been an absolute pleasure. Oh, wait, The Rock? Did you say something about The Rock? Luca's there with Gasper. Remember? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, that Shala totally dies. That's the broken timelines version of Shala. Here, we can get a shot of that. Spoiler alerts ahead, everyone. I guess it would have been here. Oh yeah, here's the rock. And falling now. Falling. Wow. Rock is taking a long time. Oop. Okay, so yeah, this Shala is finished. Like, after this event, she's finished. She's finished. Robo's finished. And actually, you could argue that Gasper is finished too, but there's more on that later. Gasper is like pseudo finished after this. But yeah, everyone else is pretty much done for. Oh wait, what happened? There definitely needs to be the end by the queen. And she deserves it. So after this incident, gone. At least 3 confirmed and possibly 3.5 people sort of do not survive this scene. And on that note,